right. Not live. Jarrett and Zach are back to talk about the movies. Zach and Jarrett embark on an adventure that often is past the pop culture media reaction. They're just too casual couch critics. Here to couch critic you to infinity and beyond.
Wow.
That wasn't the worst intro.
That was definitely the first time you tried that as well.
Yeah, that wasn't like 3 takes. Yeah.
And welcome back, everyone. Triple C, Jarrett and Zach here. And who cares if we're reacting a week later than everyone else? That's just kind of what we do.
We're casual. Everyone's
casual.
Uptight. They're uptight. They're like, gotta get those views.
Yeah. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Last episode, obviously we talked about Argyle and the slow start to 2024. We're back.
Oh yeah.
We're all the way back. This is going to be a heavily Dune Part 2 episode, as it should be, frankly, as it deserves.
Before we get, can I give a quick shout out here?
Yeah, shout out.
So the Amherst Theater, it's in Amherst, Nova Scotia, small independent theater. They did something really cool this week. It's spring break, and they were still running like Dune 2 and like new movies in the evenings. But during the day, they had kids' movies. They had like the Paw Patrol. They had Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Then they had the new Trolls movie. And they were only charging $3.50 a ticket. And lots of parents and kids came, and it was cool. And I just wanted to shout them out.
Yeah, support your local theater.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
And now people know where to find you.
Yeah.
Well, I thought we'd start, Zach. We did a Oscars previews episode, and kind of going through all the nominees. I don't think we need to spend too much time, but obviously the Oscars happened last weekend. And, in the vein of Dune Part 2 could have been a part of this year's Oscars, and that could have thrown a wrench in a lot of the awards given out. Obviously, Dune is looking like a strong contender already, even though the Oscars ended a week ago for all the awards next year. So it's going to be interesting to see how Dune kind of rides the wave over the next year, because it got pushed due to the actor strikes. But obviously, Oppenheimer won Best Picture. Christopher Nolan finally got up on the board with his signature film, winning also Best Director. Cillian Murphy winning Best Actor. Robert Downey Jr. winning Best Supporting Actor. And it was, I think Oppenheimer won as well for a number of the technical aspects like cinematography and score and editing. So it was a big Oppenheimer time, as I think was mostly expected. Again, those technical things like editing and cinematography, I think they would have been very competitive if had Dune been in there. And
honestly, I would have loved that, to have Oppenheimer versus Dune 2.
Oh. Yeah, but I think it's definitely deserved. The technical achievements of Christopher Nolan have been understood for a long time now. And this definitely was kind of the culmination of more of a mainstream biopic format and how he and his own take on that. And it was kind of the clear-cut favorite. Now, were there any twists and turns? I would say Emma Stone winning her second Best Actress wasn't necessarily unexpected, but defeating Lily Gladstone, Killers of the Flower Moon, they were kind of head-to-head the whole way. But Emma Stone, she's one of our great actresses right now. She's won 2 Academy Awards in like 5 years, so that's pretty cool. Davine Joy Randolph in The Holdovers. She kind of had it the whole way as well in leading up for Best Actress in Supporting Role. American Fiction winning Best Adapted Screenplay. I don't think that's completely unexpected. I was kind of surprised. I felt like Oppenheimer might win here as well, but I think they kind of knew Oppenheimer was winning everything else. And then Anatomy of a Fall won original screenplay, which I think was also a little bit surprising for me personally. I know the internet was kind of having a big battle over the best animated feature, and
Yeah.
Zach, you and I are big proponents of animated films. We think they have a lot of depth, even though there are definitely some made that are meant strictly just for kids' entertainment. There's no doubt about that. But The Boy and the Heron, Hayao Miyazaki's return, beat out Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. A lot of people were upset, but I see a lot of people fighting like, hey, these were both masterclass films. Spider-Verse, I think, in my opinion, and you and I we didn't have this podcast when Spider-Verse came out, but I think the part one hurt it. I think ending kind of on that cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I think that for me personally, having seen these movies, I think that might have been it. But that was definitely one of the big takeaways out of the Oscars was The Boy and the Heron one. Was just if people haven't checked out Hayao Miyazaki's movies, they are very unique. This is not his first Academy Award, and there's a reason for that. So
Absolutely, and I think you're right on the sense of like Sony, making Spider-Verse a part one definitely heard it as a film, but at the same time, when you're a viewer of that movie, you knew it was a part one going into it. You knew it was going to have an unsatisfying ending. You knew it was going to be setting up a sequel. That being said, I think this is something the Academy got right. In like, you can totally celebrate the animation achievement that Spider-Verse is, and just it's a great story. But The Boy and the Heron was a complete film, a complete story, right? And it's not like it's still an achievement in animation. It's beautifully animated. It's obviously drastically different looking than Spider-Verse is. But no, I have no issue with The Boy and the Heron winning over Spider-Verse here. And I think the only reason people have issue with it is they might have not seen Boy and the Heron, but they also might have just really loved Spider-Man and Spider-Verse, which who doesn't, right?
Exactly. And I mean, it got an Oscar nomination in itself. The first movie, Into the Spider-Verse, won. So, I mean, it's not like it's being ignored.
Yep.
But I think that was definitely one of the bigger reactions. Best documentary went into 20 Days in Mariupol. I'm pretty sure it's available on YouTube for anyone who wants to watch that. That was kind of a clear-cut winner for there. Zone of Interest winning Best International Feature. Again, that one I think was pretty straightforward. War is Over winning Best Animated Short Film. Wes Anderson won with The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar for a live action short film, which is entertaining. That one's on Netflix. And I think that one, again, wasn't too unexpected. The Last Repair Shop for Best Documentary Short Film. I think this is on YouTube too. It's great. This is the one I wanted to win. I wasn't sure what would the favorite be, and it won. I was very excited. And then, yeah, as I said, a lot of the technical stuff, cinematography, Oppenheimer, editing, Oppenheimer. However, we haven't mentioned Barbie yet, and its strongest categories were probably going to be costume design, production design, song, which won, obviously. Not I'm Just Ken, even though that was definitely the highlight of the ceremony itself, was Ryan Gosling performing that, but Billie Eilish's What Was I Made For won. But Poor Things where Emma Stone won Best Actress, kind of took that away with costume design and makeup and hairstyling and production design, and they kind of swept all those technical categories. So Barbie just ends up with, the song, which, to some that might be a struggle, but I think the reality is, like, even if you threw in, like we talked about, Dune in this mix, like, the competition last year, and I think we discussed this on the preview podcast, but because of the pandemic delays and stuff, kind of everyone's films, most of, like, Hollywood's best directors had a movie come out last year. And so it was a tight competition. And if Dune had been thrown in there, that would have just been one more on top of the pile. Barbie's good. Barbie's made over $1 billion. We talked about it on on the preview pod. I think they're okay, but I mean, I definitely, I don't know if people were mainstream people were necessarily expecting Poor Things domination in terms of that stuff, but it's just how it happened. And then Godzilla Minus One, which we had an episode about, won Best Visual Effects. Notable story, as always, $15 million budget. Yep. And it came in and won, and that's pretty impressive. Do I think it should have won over The Creator? No. Do I understand why it won? Yes, because they definitely did less with, or more. They did more with less.
Yeah.
Not less with more, because then they should.
That'd be worse. Yeah, that'd be
worse. But I thought, I mean, I can't say it wasn't deserving. I was super pumped it got a nomination, obviously, with the cult following that we had taken part in. I personally just thought The Creator had better visuals, but it's Godzilla Minus One.
Yeah, on the board. And, like, on that note, I feel like Godzilla Minus One had this thing going for it, where, you know how when you have a friend who makes a really good, YouTube video or short film or something like that, and you're like, that's amazing, that's cool, because about the budget that he maybe made it for like less than $5, or he made it with his camera phone or something. I think kind of that same feeling comes with, because everyone I talk to about Godzilla Minus Ones, one of the first thing they bring up is, the budget, it was only like 15 million, but it looks amazing. It looks beautiful. And that's no knock on The Creator, because The Creator also was, in terms of Hollywood, a lower budget film, like 80 million, something around there. Gorgeous looking film. I love that film. Like, I think the parallels to District 9 was really cool in The Creator, and like, just there's so much about The Creator that I love as a film. I could talk The Creator off all day. But Godzilla Minus One winning this award definitely comes with the success that it had at the box office, being a non-North American film as well. That just speaks to how good of a movie it was.
Yep. And I guess to that point, like, both good points, like, Creator definitely had a lower budget than most Hollywood blockbusters too. And that's not taking away from Godzilla's achievement. Court Jefferson, he was the winner for American Fiction, and I thought his acceptance speech was really interesting, because he was saying, Hollywood, please, instead of investing in one $200 million movie, realize you could make $10-20 million movies and give us a chance necessary to tell our stories. And when you see like Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny last year, I enjoyed that movie. I thought it was a good send-off to one of my favorite characters. It was $350 million.
Yeah,
it did. Yeah, that, I don't know where that money went, but I mean, there's a reason why. But and the same thing with like the big issues that Disney we've talked about, right? Like Quantumania costing $250 million. Like, where is this money going, and why does the product look the way it does? And not to say, I mean, we're about to talk about Dune Part 2, and that had a $200 million budget, but it looked like it had a $200 million budget.
It
And
shows its budget, yeah.
we'll get into that, but I think there's a value in, hey, are we just throwing money unnecessarily to get to pump out these big movies, which now with the failures recently of big cinematic universe movies such as even Madam Web, Aquaman recently, Ant-Man, we talked about the Marvels, like all these things are getting hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think there's a reason the Academy this year, I think hopefully that means there is support in the movie industry for more authentic films to be made, with a budget that is being utilized effectively. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, that's just our quick recap. We thought we'd do that since we did our prediction show. But there's no better segue from the Oscars, and we've already talked about it. Dune Part 2. Is this already, Zach, the movie event of the year?
Ooh, that's a tough question. It potentially is. It potentially, anyone who watched our preview show, which not many people, but some did. I was Dune 2 was my movie I was looking forward to the most. There's other movies I'm looking forward to, but in terms of if I had to pick just one movie from 2024 that I was going to get to watch, it was going to be Dune Part 2. And I'm excited to see this movie again and again. And then when it comes out on, streaming, I want to see it again. It's a rewatchable movie. It's one of those movies that you talk about with people, and the more you talk about it, the more you enjoy it, the more you like it. So yeah, it in that sense, it's an event, right? It's not just a popcorn flick. You show up, have a fun time, and then leave and forget about it, right? This is a movie that anyone who has seen Dune 2 is now part of this conversation. It's part of this, what did you like about Dune 2? Or what did you think of the sandworms? Or what did you think of the battle at the end? Or what did you think of what they did to film this thing, or the visuals, or the story, or even I was talking to my friend, and we probably talked for 40 minutes just about Paul, the main character. And we in that conversation, we even argued that Paul was fantastic, did a great job, but the supporting cast around him all knocked it out of the park as well. And you could talk, several conversations just about the supporting cast in this film. So in that sense, I don't know if there's another movie this year that's going to be able to match that pure event part. And I think they've made a iconic popcorn bucket for it, right? Is that going to get topped this year by any film? I don't think so.
How to get the popcorn bucket in there?
Absolutely.
This I grew up with the book. I'm a bit unique in that case. I know that obviously Dune came out in the 60s. It inspired Star Wars. It inspired a lot of science fiction as we know today. When the first movie, got announced, I think fans of the book were excited, but in terms of IP, it's relatively quiet in the sense of just because of how dense it is. It's not really, in our modern era of comic book movies, it's not just flashy action and quips, which are good. This is a lot more dense, a lot more political, a lot more conversational, which you can see in how George Lucas took that into his own films. And so in the first movie, it came out in 2021, kind of some places were starting to open back up. It had a slow start at the box office, but word of mouth kind of carried it. And because Part 2 wasn't greenlit. until a few weeks after part one had come out. There was definitely an unknown where Denis Villeneuve said, hey, if there's gets enough traction, we're ready for a second movie, but we'll see what the audience thinks. And the more people kept talking about it and having access to that movie, and I think also Denis Villeneuve being such a fan of the books and openly talking about that, it's his favorite series, and this is his dream project. He was able to make it in an exciting, or part one in an exciting way that audiences could understand and latch onto. And even if they didn't understand, they could it was easily rewatchable, to your point, and that carried through to the second movie. And I think also to your point, hiring like all these A-list actors who are willing to be in just one scene, some of them, and like come for 3 days and leave, because that means every single character is like world-class acting. And we definitely live in a time where there's a lot of phenomenal actors, and a lot of them are in part one and part two of the movie. Obviously, if you've seen part one, a lot of them, in terms of the Atreides family, don't make it, but they just cast a bunch of other characters for this movie. And you're right, you could spend hours dissecting each performance because of how accomplished all the actors are. And that just is further emphasized by how well the production is, how well the cinematography is, how well the score is, the costume design, everything. All the technical stuff we talked about for the Oscars are what makes up a movie behind the scenes. It's like everyone's just hitting home runs. Like it's not just the people in front of the camera, but behind the camera too. Like they knew what they were doing.
It was wins all around. Wins
all around. Like I was listening to a review recently, and they talked about the iconic scene of Paul, getting ready to do his final test to ride the worm, right? And that, that scene alone could be up. That could be where people get taken out of the movie, or not executed well. And just that scene alone, where it's just him, it's the score, it's the anticipation, the tension. It's just incredible. And you could say that about any of the scenes. So it's going to keep rolling. Again, very interesting in terms of, I know we're not heavily Oscar focused here, but just what its impact would be, because it was supposed to come out several times last year, just kept getting pushed because of some of the strikes and stuff. And I'm glad they didn't like they obviously knew the people behind this film knew it was ready.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't say, let's wait till next November. Let's just push it 4 months and things should be worked out by then because we want people to see this movie. And especially with how bad the opening 2 months of the year have been in terms of releases, this is just I'm very thankful. They put
and I think movie theaters got to be thankful that they pushed it too, right? Or like I guess Kung Fu Panda's been doing all right, but you wouldn't have had much if Dune 2 didn't come out. Then. Well, one little thing I want to mention this, and we haven't talked about this yet, but one of the things, it's so simple, but I love it, and we kind of rarely see this in modern Hollywood. This is a sequel that started mere moments after the first movie.
Yep.
Often they use time jumps or time skips or whatever. And just something as simple and especially for someone who watched Dune 1 not too far before I watched Dune 2, it was so nice. Just refresh you, be like, oh yeah, I know where we are. Right? And they almost kind of got a pass in putting the audience in the setting or world building to an extent, because it was all done in the first film, right? And when you start it literally just right where the first film ended. And I the other thing that you said that I found kind of interesting and perplexing is, do you think that because of Dune 1 being released during when, there were so many restrictions on theaters, and they had the digital release the same day that, obviously hurt its box office. Do you think that that was in the back mind of the studio being like, no, we believe in this thing. We know it's a good movie. We want this to get the full on blockbuster treatment. We want to have a good marketing tour with the actors and directors. Do you think that maybe had something to do with it? Is just the studio was like, we want to make sure this is done right?
I don't necessarily. I'm probably a bit more cynical about studios.
Okay.
To think that I think they're all about profit margins. I think once the word of mouth came in, there was a bit more of a late success in its box office run. That's when they approved the green light. But I mean, for instance, going back to Christopher Nolan, his previous film prior to Oppenheimer was Tenet, which he fought hard with Warner Brothers. He wanted it released, and they kept saying no, and then they released it, and it didn't do well, obviously, because it was in the height of the pandemic. And they just re-released it right now in IMAX for the first time, and people are coming around on Tenet. That was a much discussed film because it was a bit confusing. I think these filmmakers, with Villeneuve and Nolan specifically, they know how to make movies designed for the theater, with all the sound, with the giant screen. And I think that lends to its success because, and you're right. I think having a press tour and stuff this time around certainly helps. It gets people interested. Also,
the popcorn bucket alone got people talking about it.
Just casting, recognizable stars in every single part as well, right? So, which I think helped bring people into the first movie. So, all that to say, I'm not sure. I'm a bit more cynical in how studios operate. To think it's not anything but money.
Well, and to be fair, it could literally just be a smart marketing executive being like, hey, it makes way more sense for us to release this in 2024 than 2023, right? And that, if you don't want to give credit to the whole studio.
Yeah, very possible. And to your point, maybe we'll just talk about the movie a little bit. So you're right. It opens up, we're introduced to Princess Irulan, who kind of gives us a bit of exposition of what's happening outside of Arrakis, and then we're right back into where the first movie ended, with Paul just finishing his fight with Janice. And this movie, I would say, even though it opens up right after the first one ends, the first one in terms of timeline is fairly, linear. Not to say this isn't, but there are definitely time skips implied as his mother gets more pregnant throughout the movie, as Paul becomes more and more part of the community and eventually a leader, as we skip to what's happening in other planets and what they're doing. I think an interesting part of this movie that is a credit to it is, unlike the first movie, which is okay, the house is under attack, then there's them trying to get out, and that's the movie. It's there are definitely time jumps in this movie that they don't emphasize, but it's fairly easy to recognize.
You don't get lost in it.
You don't necessarily get lost, because it definitely this movie takes place over a few months. It's not like the first movie where it took place over a couple weeks or whatever as they moved, and then when the actual assassination of his father happens, it's kind of just pretty within a couple days from that point on in part one. So the scale is, as they always say with sequels, bigger and better is what usually the goal, and they went bigger in terms of timeline even. So just crazy. Any favorite parts for you?
Oh, I guess off the top of my head, there's two things. Number one, I do really like the scene with the baby sandworm in the water, and when they're actually like extracting the water of life from it. Just it was creepy, but at the same time like cool, sort of. So like
The
just
pools, the pool areas, like the just the spiritual temple or whatever, where
yeah.
they were. It was so well choreographed and designed, and yeah.
Well, and even the water, like the water
Yeah.
looking the shade of blue that it did just was iconic, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say, and I think when I saw it, and after you saw it, we called and just talked about it on the phone. One thing that like I continually just love about this film, and I think it's just the sign of a really good director, is when you can just keep building tension throughout the film, and you keep your audience hooked, right? And this is a film that it constantly was building tension, and you got very little payouts throughout the film, and even at the end you got a big payout, but the tensions rise, right? And so I'll be curious to see kind of how that goes. So I appreciated that, just about the overall story of the film. The final fight scene, with the knives, and like the parallel to like um to why am I forgetting the main character? Paul's training in the first movie, and like how he uses the move that he was taught.
Mhm.
So I enjoy just stuff like that.
Yeah. I
What
think for
about
me, when
you?
I think,
What was
well,
your
like
favorite?
how they open it, right? Like the first action set piece, it's quiet, right? We get the dialogue, then it's them moving through, but then like the Harkonnen ship comes, like a patrol, and it's kind of them trying to disrupt it, and they just silently drop, and they like silently move up linearly up a mountain to like scope out where the Fremen might be. Like to your point of tension, it starts right away with that
Yeah,
scene, and it's just brilliantly done. Never seen anything like it before. We're used to jetpacks being like loud and a bit of a show, and it's just like these guys are hunters. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. I've never seen anything like that.
yeah,
So I thought from the get-go, you're right, the start is just awesome. The second scene that comes to mind is just a simple shot of when Paul and Chani, relationships growing, and they're just walking together doing the sand walk. And it's just quiet. And it's interesting that I keep mentioning the quiet parts. And I think that is a credit to the movie, because it's so like the score's so loud, the sound is so loud, everything else is so loud that the quiet moments are really well done. So when it's just them silently, doing their patterns in the sand, that was really cool. And then, the opposite of that is when Paul finally drinks the water of life, um, knowing what's going to come next. He gets the visions. He can see, the path forward for the future, and he is in the uh, giant, I don't know, underground thing with all the Fremen, and his character is fully transformed. He's not subdued Paul. He's not he is completely in control and willing to challenge. And that's kind of where the Lisan El Gib, everyone accepts him as he's telling people their past and their futures, what their thoughts are. And he's just it. I thought Timothy Chalamet, right? He's this, in a lot of movies, he's cast a bit of as a dorky character, or a bit of a bad boy with, um, some slight confidence. I thought this was a completely different. This was like a commanding,
yeah.
in control guy. And Paul, he's uncertain. His family's been killed up until this point. I thought he did a really good job. But the switch, I thought, was the best part of his acting. So those are the three scenes that just quickly come to mind. But like you said before, I could keep talking about every single
So
aspect of it.
On the note of Timothy Chalamet, is it weird that him and Wonka and I loved Wonka. I thought it was a great movie, but seeing him in that, which is a very different character than Paul, I actually appreciated his performance in Dune 2 better because I saw Wonka first. Where if I would have seen Dune 2 first and then Wonka, I'm not sure I would have appreciated the same way. But like I love that I saw him and Wonka, enjoyed that movie, had a good time with it, and then saw him in Dune 2 and was like, whoa, this guy has got chops, he's got range. Loved it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's been kind of flagged as the next one in Hollywood for a long time, but I mean, this whole cast is there for a reason. Like I think he's been around for like 5 or 6 years now. Timothy Chalamet in prominent roles, anyway. Standouts, obviously, Zendaya was phenomenal after kind of just being teased in the first movie. Rebecca Ferguson as his mom. You know, this maybe the most complex role to actually act as a mother who is pregnant and whose fetus is alive and also is controlling her son and an entire population. I don't know how you do that as an actress. I think she should get some more recognition. Austin Butler. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Austin, but no, you finish, then I'll say my point. Yeah.
Okay, Austin Butler as Fade Rotha. You know, I've been hesitant on the Austin Butler hype train the past 2 years or so. Obviously, he was Elvis and couldn't get rid of his accent, and he's in Masters of the Air right now, a very popular Apple show in the Band of Brothers vein of things, and you know, upcoming in the bike ride. Like he's the guy right now, and I necessarily wasn't really bought in. I thought I just kind of thought he was a pretty boy, to be honest. He steals the scenes he is in this movie, which is saying something for the cast. And you know, Javier Bardem as Stilgar, obviously that's where all the memes are coming from, but he's just having the time of his life. Javier Bardem just being, it's comic relief, his character, but you know, it's also his character is a devoted zealot. Like
it's a vital part of the film.
Yeah. Like he's not saying, you know, he's the one like as a joke. He like means it, and it's only a joke in the context of, you know, a bit of the absurdness he puts into the performance. But yeah, he's phenomenal. And then, you know, everyone else in the film is great.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a question for you, Jarrett. Oscars next year. You can only pick one performance from Dune 2 to be best supporting actor or actress. Who are you picking? Yeah.
To me, it's between Austin Butler or Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure yet. I think I have to rewatch again just to fully decide. But
okay.
See, I think Austin Butler's scenes stand out so much. You think about them a lot, but Rebecca Ferguson's just in the background of every scene, just being the manipulative mother.
Yep.
And it's a lot more subdued of a role than she was in the first movie.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and you know, honestly, because her role was subdued in the first movie, and the way it, you know, had an impact on this movie, that's kind of what gave her the opportunity to have a performance like that. Really, right? Yeah. Jared, are you cool if we head to the little fun facts here?
Fun facts.
So everyone who's watching and listening, I have some five interesting cinematography facts about Dune Part 2. And Jarrett has not read these. He's not. I've briefly read them, just casually. Keep it casual, you know. So it is going to get technical here, but Jared, I'd love to hear your reaction. So, fact number one: the cameras are ARRI, Alexa 65, and Mini LF. So, explanation is Dune Part 2 was shot on that camera, or those cameras, as opposed to the first film that was shot on this camera. Hence, it was not shot on IMAX film cameras. That's a bit strange since the IMAX CEO started before that Part 2 was shot purely on IMAX cameras. However, it's filmed for IMAX movie and not filmed in IMAX movie. That's completely fine since the movie was planned to be screened on IMAX film from the ground up. You understand that when we talk about lenses in the next set of facts. So therefore, the Mighty 65 was chosen indeed, and that camera there is the nearest thing to an IMAX film. So I know that can get technical here, but it's just so cool to see a creative team take the standard of Hollywood for shooting a movie like this and be like, well, let's find some new ways. Let's find some creative ways. Fact number two: at first, the movie was planned to shoot on film. So cinematographer Greg Fraser he told the rental camera place that he had a vast discussion about how to shoot the film in the first place. Although part one looked gorgeous, they wanted part two to be a bit different since it's a bigger production. A bigger story, more planets, and everything amplified. Thus, they thought about shooting part two on film, even on 16 millimeter camera. Eventually, they chose that camera. So why didn't they choose a real IMAX film camera like the 9802? That's a good question. Maybe it will be the camera for part three. So interesting little thing there. Fact number three: only spherical lenses were used, which that's cool. That's cool. The film was shot on spherical glass only. There were no anamorphic lenses as opposed to Dune Part 1. The reason for that is to allow full utilization of IMAX aspect ratio. That's so cool that you could think to do that. This is an intriguing approach, avoiding anamorphic glass when shooting for the IMAX in order to utilize the entire IMAX screen. That's really cool. Okay, two more here. Fact number four: the lenses of that camera's rental Heroes and Movie Cam. So the Alexa 65 was paired with very fascinating glass, large format lenses for the extreme texture look, plus rehoused the 1980s movie cam lenses. Texturize the image was the name of the game, says Fraser there. The larger Alexa sensors are so extraordinary that I felt we needed to dirty the image up a bit. To help achieve this, the rental company provided the cinematographer with additional lenses from its Heroes collection, designed to deliver extreme looks. The Heroes is a brand for dedicated lenses for certain cinematography missions. Defines Hero as lenses with optical superpowers. The main models there are large format, and the look lenses allow cinematographers to dial in the detuned look shot by shot. Anyway, I won't go reading that whole thing because that's a lot of technical thing. But here at the very end it says, additionally, the movie cam lenses combined with vintage optics and cinematic backstory with modern high-performance lens housings, respectively updating a 1980s design from the legendary movie cam brand. They are impressively compact and lightweight for large format lenses, offering a characterful but consistent. And the final fact on this article here, just from the technical aspect here, is infrared techniques were used, and that is definitely noticed with all the different like color grading, especially like the black and white planet. So it appears in the scenes on planet. How do you pronounce that?
Which one?
Gotta get it. Giga Prime.
Yeah, it's where the Harkonnens are from.
Yeah, the Harkins. Okay, right. So they were shot on infrared camera, and the IR filters were removed to get a distinctive monochromatic imagery, which obviously you see in the film. And then Fraser implemented the methodology after inferred cinematography from Zero Dark 30, which was shot a decade earlier. Interesting callback there. So again, I won't read this whole thing, but the point is, I love and again, I'm not a camera guru or expert by any means, but I appreciate how much work went into, like, okay, we're not just going to film a big budget film, on a planet full of sand. Like, this is going to be like Star Wars if it was just on Tatooine. No. They went a step, further, because when you develop new techniques, you develop these new ways to film things.
Yep.
To push the movie industry as a whole forward. It causes other filmmakers, it inspires other filmmakers to be like, hey, how can we use that technique? How can we do that? And so, like, something I appreciate about Dune Part 2 is this movie is going to inspire other filmmakers for years to come. And we're going to get so much, innovation and just beautiful movies because filmmakers saw this movie and were like, hey, I want to know how they did that. I want to know what camera they used. I want to know how I'm going to recreate that for my big movie that I'm working on. So, anyway, what are your thoughts on just like the pure technical aspects of this movie?
Yeah, I mean, so Dune Part 1, it won score, it won sound, it won production, it won cinematography, it won film editing and visual effects, and maybe one other that I'm missing. But to your point, like, they were wanting to make it even, they're wanting to challenge themselves on the second film, and a lot of those people returned, including Greg Fraser, who you cited, the cinematographer, and who won the award for Dune Part 1. He wasn't, he didn't, I wouldn't say satisfied, but he didn't want to settle, right? It's a different challenge, different, even though it's a continuation of the story, there's different settings, there's different ideas of how to shoot it. Now they're actually out in the desert. Now they're on an alien planet. How can we make that different? Let's use infrared. So I totally agree. I mean, like I said, everyone both in front and behind the camera just feels like they were at their absolute best, and that's credit to Denis Villeneuve, the director, getting the right people and having a vision and getting it executed. So,
absolutely, yeah. Whew, man, Dune Part 2. We could talk for hours about this, but we want to hear from you listening. Let us know in the comments, what were some of your favorite parts about the movie? Are you going to go see it a second time, a third time? I know Jarrett and I both are.
Yep, 100%. Well, Zach, it's been good as always.
Yeah, it's been casual.
Ride your sandworms to where your dreams are, and
that's how you want to end it. Ride your sandworms where your dreams are.
Why not?
I'm inspired. Well, okay.
All right.
Oh, thanks everyone. Let's see, outro music. Here we go. Yeah, already made that my choice. Or it's 10 of you, because I'm pretty sure we're like 2 of our subscribers. But anyway, peace out, everyone.
See ya.